One human ship destroys the Galactic Empire's mighty fleet. Part 1. Captain Una Park stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance and watched the stars. They looked peaceful tonight. Cold and distant, but peaceful. She knew that peace would not last much longer. The year was 2387. Humanity had reached the stars only 50 years ago. They had built colonies on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, and on distant worlds around other suns. They had dreamed of a bright future among the stars. But the universe had other plans. The Valorian Empire had come. They were an ancient race that had conquered over 200 star systems. They took what they wanted. They enslaved who they wished. And now, they wanted Earth.Yuna turned away from the viewing window as the door behind her opened. Lieutenant Taeho Kim walked in with a tablet in his hands. He was young, barely 30 years old, but he was the best weapons officer in the fleet, or what remained of the fleet. "Captain," he said. His voice was steady, but Una could see the fear in his eyes. Long-range sensors have confirmed it. The Valorian Grand Fleet is approaching. 3,000 warships. 3,000. Una let that number settle in her mind. Earth's defense fleet had once numbered 500 ships. After 6 months of fighting, after battle, only the Defiance remained. One ship against 3,000. How long until they arrive? She asked. 12 hours, Taeho answered. They will exit hyperspace near Neptune's orbit. Una nodded slowly. She had known this day would come. The Valorians had destroyed every fleet that stood against them. The colonies on Alpha Centauri had fallen. The outposts in the Tau Ceti system had been burned to ash. Earth was the last stronghold of humanity. The communication console beeped. Ensign G1 Beak, a young woman with short black hair, turned to the captain. "Admiral Lee is calling from Earth Command, Captain." "Put him through." The main screen flickered, and the face of Admiral Daesung Lee appeared. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had led humanity's defense from the beginning. He had watched fleet after fleet fall to the Valorian weapons. "Captain Park," he said, "I assume you have seen the sensor reports." "I have, Admiral." "Then you know what I am about to order you to do." The Admiral's voice was heavy with sadness. "The Defiance is the last warship we have. You must retreat. Jump to the backup coordinates. Preserve the ship. Preserve your crew. We will need you for whatever comes next." Una was quiet for a moment. She looked around the bridge at her crew. At Taeho, who had lost his brother in the Battle of Proxima. At G1, whose entire family lived in Seoul. At Dr. Hannah Cho, the chief engineer, who had designed half the systems on this ship with her own hands. "Admiral," Una said finally, "with respect, I must refuse." The Admiral's eyes widened. "Captain, this is not a request. This is an order, and I am choosing not to follow it." Una stepped closer to the screen. "If we run, the Valorians will reach Earth in days. There will be no one to slow them down. No one to make them pay for every kilometer they advance. My crew and I will stay." "You will die," the Admiral said. "All 800 of you will die, and it will change nothing." "Perhaps," Una admitted. "But humans do not surrender. We never have. When our ancestors faced impossible enemies, they stood their ground. They fought to the last breath. And even if they lost, they made sure their enemies remembered the cost." She paused. "We will make the Valorians remember." The Admiral stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You are a fool, Captain Park, but you are the kind of fool that makes humanity worth saving." He raised his hand in a salute. "Good luck, Defiance. Earth will remember you." The screen went dark. Una turned to face her bridge crew. They were all looking at her. Some were scared. Some were determined. All of them were waiting. "You heard the Admiral," she said. "He gave us permission to run. No one would blame us if we did. No one would call us cowards." She walked slowly across the bridge. "But I'm not running. I will stay and fight. I will show these Valorians what happens when they threaten our home." She stopped in the center of the bridge. "I will not order any of you to stay with me. If you want to leave, take the escape pods. I will not stop you. I will not judge you. But if you want to stay, if you want to fight beside me, then stay at your posts." No one moved. Not a single person moved toward the doors. Dr. Hannah Cho, a woman in her 40s with gray streaks in her hair, was the first to speak. "Captain, I have been working on this ship for 15 years. I know every wire, every circuit, every bolt. I am not leaving her now." Taeho stepped forward. "My brother died fighting the Valorians. I will not let his death be meaningless." G1 nodded. "My family is on Earth. I will protect them." One by one, every member of the bridge crew spoke. They were staying. All of them. Yuna felt her heart swell with pride. These were her people. These were humans. "Then let us prepare," she said. "We have 12 hours to turn this ship into a weapon the Valorians will never forget." The crew went to work. Dr. Cho ran to engineering to push the engines beyond their limits. Taeho began programming every weapon system for maximum efficiency. G1 coordinated with every department on the ship. Yuna walked to the viewing window once more. Out there, beyond the distant planets, 3,000 warships were coming to destroy her home. They thought humanity was weak. They thought one ship would be easy to crush. They were wrong. The hours passed quickly. Reports came in from every deck. Weapons were charged. Shields were reinforced. The crew was ready. 847 souls, all prepared to give their lives for their world. Then, at exactly 0600 hours, the long-range sensors screamed a warning. "Captain," G1 called out. "Hyperspace signatures detected." "They are here." Yuna watched as the stars began to disappear. One by one, they were blocked out by the shadows of massive ships. The Valorian Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark cloud spreading across the sky. 3,000 warships, each one larger than the Defiance, each one armed with enough firepower to level a city. At the center of the fleet was the flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed all others. That would be where their commander sat, watching, waiting, expecting easy victory. He would not find it today. "All hands," Yuna said over the ship-wide communication. "This is the captain. The enemy has arrived. We are one ship against an empire. The odds are impossible. The outcome is uncertain. But we are human, and humans do not give up." She paused and looked at the endless wall of enemy ships. "Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Today, we fight." The crew answered with a single word that echoed through every deck of the ship. "Fight." And the Defiance turned to face the storm. One human ship destroys the Galactic Empire's mighty fleet. Part 4. The Defiance floated among the wreckage of over 1,000 Valorian ships. Fire and debris drifted past the viewing windows. The silence was strange after the chaos of battle. But Yuna knew the silence would not last. "Report on enemy fleet status," she ordered. Tae-Ho pulled up the tactical display. Approximately 1,800 Valorian ships remain operational. They have spread into a wide formation, maintaining significant distance between vessels. "They are approaching slowly." Yuna nodded. The enemy had learned. They would not make the same mistake twice. The gravity weapon would not be as effective against a spread formation. "Dr. Cho, how long until the gravity system is ready?" 15 more minutes, Hana replied. "And Captain, I must be honest. The system took heavy damage during that last use. When we activate it again, I can only guarantee maybe 3 minutes of operation. After that, it will burn out permanently. 3 minutes. Against 1,800 ships spread across thousands of kilometers of space. It would not be enough. We need another option, Una said quietly. On the flagship, High Commander Velthus had regained his composure. The initial shock had faded, replaced by cold determination. He had lost half his fleet, but he still commanded 1,800 warships. More than enough to destroy one small human vessel. All ships will maintain spread formation, he ordered. No ship is to come within 500 kilometers of another. We will surround the human vessel and destroy it with concentrated fire from multiple angles. Their gravity weapon cannot bend that many shots. Sub-Commander Rethka approached carefully. High Commander, I suggest we also analyze their ship more carefully. There may be other surprises. Velthus glared at him. There will be no more surprises. The humans used a trick. It was clever. But tricks only work once. He pointed at the distant Defiance. All weapons, prepare to fire on my command. The Valorian ships formed a massive sphere around the Defiance, approaching from every direction. There would be no escape this time, no gaps to fly through, no way to dodge. On the Defiance, the crew watched the approaching doom with grim faces. They are surrounding us, one ship reported. I cannot fly us out of this. Shields will not hold against that many weapons, G1 added. Una gripped the arms of her chair. There had to be something, some weakness, some flaw they could exploit. Taeho, she said suddenly. During the battle, you were analyzing their weapon signatures. Did you find anything useful? Taeho looked up, surprised by the question. Let me check. He pulled up his data from the fight. His eyes moved rapidly across the screen, searching through the information dot. Then he stopped. Captain, he said slowly, I found something. Tell me. Valorian shield cycle. They do not maintain constant coverage. Instead, they pulse on and off very quickly. The shields are active for 3.5 seconds, then inactive for 0.2 seconds while they reset. Una leaned forward. 0.2 seconds. That is a tiny window. Yes, but our targeting computers can track the cycle. If we time our shots perfectly, we can hit them during that 0.2 second gap. Their shields would be useless. Hope flickered in Una's chest. Can you program the weapons to fire automatically at the right moment? I can, Taeho said. But there is a problem. Our weapons need power to fire. Against 1,800 ships, we would need to fire thousands of shots. Our current power reserves will not last. Una turned to the intercom. Dr. Cho, if we divert all power from non-essential systems to weapons, how many shots can we fire? There was a pause as Hana calculated. If we shut down everything except basic life support, weapons, and engines, maybe 2,000 precision shots. But Captain, when I say basic life support, I mean very basic. Air recycling only, no heat. The temperature will drop to freezing within minutes. Do it, Una ordered. Captain, G1 spoke up. The crew will put on emergency suits. We have trained for this. Una stood and activated the ship-wide communication. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to divert all power to weapons. Temperature will drop rapidly. Everyone is to put on emergency thermal suits immediately. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, crew members rushed to emergency lockers and pulled out thick insulated suits. Within minutes, every person on the Defiance was prepared for the cold. The lights dimmed. The hum of the ship grew quieter as system after system shut down. The temperature began to fall. Power diverted, High reported. Weapons are fully charged. And Captain, I have managed to repair enough of the gravity system for one more activation. 2 minutes maximum. but it will be ready when you need it. Excellent work, Doctor. The Valorian fleet had finished surrounding them. 1,800 ships formed a massive sphere of death. All weapons pointed at the tiny human vessel at the center. Valthus smiled as he gave the order. All ships, open fire. The universe exploded with light. Weapons fire came from every direction. Beams and missiles filled the space around the Defiance. This time, there was no formation to exploit. No ships close enough to hit each other. But there was something else. Tahoe, now! Una commanded. Tahoe activated the targeting program. The Defiance's weapons began firing in rapid sequence. Each shot was timed precisely to hit during the 0.2-second shield gap. The first Valorian cruiser exploded as a beam went straight through its unshielded hull. Then another. Then another. Valthus watched in disbelief as his ships began dying. Their shields should be stopping those shots, an officer screamed. They are hitting our reset gap, Rethka realized. They have figured out our shield frequency. Impossible. No species has ever detected that gap. But the proof was burning in front of them. Valorian ships exploded one after another as the Defiance's weapons found their marks with terrible precision. However, the human ship was also taking damage. Even one Sheik's incredible flying could not dodge everything. Beams struck the hull. Missiles exploded against the shields. Shields down to 40%, G1 reported through chattering teeth. The cold was becoming severe. Frost was forming on the consoles. 30%, 20%. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Another officer called out. Emergency seals holding. Chief Medic Sumi Jiang's voice came through the communication. Captain, I have 150 casualties. 40 dead. 40 dead. Una closed her eyes for just a moment. 40 of her people gone. But she could not stop now. If she stopped, everyone would die. Continue firing, she ordered. Every shot counts. The battle raged on. The Defiance was being torn apart piece by piece, but it was taking Valorian ships with it. For every wound the human ship received, another enemy vessel died. Enemy count down to 1,500, Tahoe reported. 1,400, 1,300. But the Defiance was dying too. Captain, weapons power is nearly depleted, Hana warned. We have maybe 50 shots left. Una looked at the tactical display. 1,200 enemy ships remained. Still, too many. Dr. Cho, she said, is the gravity system ready? Yes, Captain. But remember, I can only give you 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 1,200 ships. It would have to be enough. All hands, Una announced. Prepare for final attack. We are about to make history. She stood and faced the viewing screen. Out there, 1,200 Valorian warships were still firing. They thought they were winning. They thought the little human ship was about to die. They were half right. Dr. Cho, on my mark, activate the gravity system at 150% power. 150%? Hannah's voice was shocked. Captain, that will definitely destroy the system. It might destroy the ship. I know, Una said quietly. Do it anyway. There was a long pause. Then Hannah's voice came back, steady and calm. Understood, Captain. Ready on your mark. Una took a deep breath. This was it. Everything they had. Everything they were. It all came down to this moment. Mark. One human ship destroys the Galactic Empire's mighty fleet. Part 3. The storm of weapons fire that flew toward the Defiance was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Thousands of energy beams cut through space. Hundreds of missiles screamed toward the small human ship. The light from the weapons was so bright, it turned the darkness of space into day. One chick. O sat at the pilot's controls, his hands steady despite his racing heart. He was the best pilot in what remained of Earth's fleet. He had flown through asteroid fields. He had escaped ambush. He had survived 12 battles against the Valorians. This was different. This was impossible. But impossible had never stopped him before. Evasive pattern delta, he muttered to himself as his fingers danced across the controls. Then roll left, dive, spin right. The Defiance moved like a dancer in a hurricane. It twisted and turned, rolled and dove, slipping between streams of deadly fire that should have destroyed it 100 times over. One chick did not think anymore. He simply flew, letting instinct guide him through the chaos. 30% of incoming fire successfully evaded, Tejo reported from his station. But we cannot dodge forever. We do not need forever, Yuna said. She pressed the intercom. Dr. Cho, activate the gravity system at 30% power. In engineering, Hana Cho took a deep breath. She had spent 10 years building this system. 10 years of calculations, experiments, and failures. She had never been able to test it at full power. Today, she would find out if her life's work would save humanity or kill them all. Activating gravity system, she said. 30% power, now. A deep hum filled the ship. Every person on board felt it in their bones. On the outer hull of the Defiance, hidden emitters came to life, creating invisible fields of gravitational force around the vessel. The effect was immediate. Energy beams that should have hit the Defiance suddenly curved away. They bent around the ship like water flowing around a stone. Missiles changed direction in mid-flight, spiraling off into empty space. It is working, Ju-Won said, her voice filled with wonder. But the true chaos came a moment later. The redirected weapons did not simply vanish. They continued flying until they hit something else, and in a fleet of 3,000 ships packed tightly together, there was always something else to hit. A Valorian destroyer took a missile meant for the Defiance. It exploded in a ball of fire. The explosion damaged the ship next to it. That ship's reactor went critical and exploded as well, destroying 2 more vessels nearby. On the flagship, Valthus watched in shock as his own weapons began tearing through his fleet. What is happening? He roared. Why are our weapons hitting our own ships? Rethka studied the sensor data, his face growing pale. The human ship has some kind of gravity manipulation technology. It is bending our weapons' fire. That is impossible. Such technology does not exist. It does now, Rethka said quietly. The Defiance continued pushing forward, deeper into the heart of the fleet. Every Valorian ship it passed tried to fire at it. Every shot that missed found a new target among their own vessels. One chick laughed out loud as he flew. The enemy was so tightly packed that he barely needed to dodge anymore. The gravity field was doing most of the work. We have entered the inner formation, he reported. Center of the fleet in 3 minutes. Excellent, Yuna said. She studied the tactical display. Enemy ships were exploding all around them. The count was already past 100 destroyed. But they were just getting started. Dr. Cho, prepare to increase power to maximum when we reach the center. Understood, Captain. But remember, at maximum power, we will have maybe 5 minutes before the system burns out completely. 5 minutes will be enough. The Defiance burst through another line of Valorian ships. More explosions. More chaos. The enemy commanders were screaming at each other over their communications, trying to coordinate a response. But how do you fight an enemy that turns your own weapons against you? Valthus slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. All ships, spread out. Break formation. Create distance between vessels. It was the right order. It was the only order that made sense. But it came too late. The Grand Fleet had been trained for decades to fight in tight formation. Thousands of ships moving as one, overwhelming enemies with concentrated fire. Breaking that formation took time. And time was something they did not have. The Defiance reached the center of the fleet. Now, Dr. Cho, Una commanded. Maximum power. Hannah pushed the controls forward. The hum in the ship grew into a roar. Warning lights began flashing across her control panels. The temperature in engineering jumped 20 degrees in seconds. Outside the ship, the gravity field expanded. It was no longer bending weapons away. Now it was creating pull. Multiple gravity wells formed around the Defiance, invisible hands reaching out and grabbing at everything nearby. Valorian ships began to move. Not by their own power. They were being pulled. A cruiser was dragged sideways into a destroyer. Both ships crumpled like paper and exploded. A battleship tried to accelerate away, but the gravity well was too strong. It spiraled inward, crashing into 3 other vessels. The chain reaction spread like fire through dry grass. Ships collided with ships. Explosions triggered more explosions. Debris flew through space, smashing into vessels that had survived the initial chaos. The tight formation that had been the Valorian strength became a death trap. 500 ships destroyed, Tahoe reported, his voice barely steady. 600. 700. On the flagship, Valthus could only stare at the destruction. His mighty fleet was tearing itself apart around a single human ship. Everything he had built, everything he had conquered, was burning. This cannot be happening, he whispered. Rethka grabbed his arm. Aye, Commander, we must retreat. We must save what remains of the fleet. Valthus turned to him with rage in his 4 eyes. Retreat? The Valorian Empire does not retreat. If we stay, we will all die. But Valthus was not listening anymore. His mind was filled with fury. He had conquered 200 star systems. He had crushed armies and enslaved nations. He would not be defeated by one ship from a primitive world. All ships! He screamed into the fleet communication. Cease fire. All ships, cease fire and pull back. Create distance. The order went out. Slowly, desperately, the surviving Valorian ships began to spread apart. They stopped firing and focused on escaping the gravity wells. On the Defiance, warning alarms were screaming. Captain, the gravity system is overheating, Hana reported. I must shut it down or we will lose the core. Una looked at the tactical display. Over 1,000 enemy ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining vessels were scattering, trying to escape. Shut it down, she ordered. The hum faded. The gravity wells collapsed. The Defiance drifted in the middle of a field of burning wreckage. For a moment, everything was quiet. Una allowed herself a small smile. They had done the impossible. One ship had broken the back of the mightiest fleet in the galaxy, but she knew it was not over. Nearly 2,000 Valorian ships still remained, and High Commander Velas was not the type to give up easily. Damage report, she said. Minor damage to outer hull, Tahoe replied. All weapons still operational. Shields at 80%. And the gravity system? Anna's voice came through heavy with exhaustion. It needs 20 minutes to cool down before we can use it again. And even then, we will only get one more use before it burns out completely. 20 minutes. That was a long time in battle. A very long time. Una looked at the scattered Valorian fleet. They were reorganizing, spreading out, learning from their mistake. The next attack would be different. The enemy would not let themselves be trapped again. All hands, she announced. Prepare for round 2. One human ship destroys the Galactic Empire's mighty fleet. Part 2, High Commander. Valthus sat upon his throne on the bridge of the Imperial flagship and looked at the tiny dot on his viewing screen. One ship. The humans had sent one ship to face his grand fleet. He began to laugh. The sound filled the massive bridge, echoing off the dark metal walls. His officers looked at each other nervously. When the High Commander laughed, someone usually died soon after. Is this a joke? Valthus asked. He was tall, even for a Valorian. His gray skin was marked with the scars of 100 battles. His 4 eyes, black as empty space, focused on the human vessel. They send one ship, one? Sub-Commander Rethka stepped forward carefully. He was Valthus' tactical advisor, a scholar who had studied many species before their conquest. High Commander, perhaps we should not take this lightly. Valthus turned his head slowly. Explain yourself. I have studied the humans, Rethka said. They are a strange species. They come from a world that should have killed them. Their planet has earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, and predators. Yet they survived. They conquered their world. And in their history, they have a pattern. What pattern? When they are cornered, when they have no hope of winning, they become most dangerous. Rethka pulled up data on his tablet. There are records of human battles where a small force held against armies 10 times their size. They do not surrender. They fight until the end, and they make their enemies pay dearly for victory. Valthus waved his hand dismissively. Primitive stories from a primitive world. They have never faced the Valorian Empire. They have never faced me. He leaned forward on his throne. Open a channel to that ship. I want to speak to their captain. On the Defiance, the communication console lit up. Captain, G1 reported. The enemy flagship is hailing us. Una straightened her uniform. Put them on screen. The image that appeared made some of the bridge crew step back in surprise. High Commander Valthus filled the screen. His gray face twisted into a smile that showed rows of sharp teeth. His 4 eyes stared at them with cruel amusement. Human Captain, he said. His voice was deep and cold. I am High Commander Valthus of the Valorian Empire. I command the greatest fleet ever assembled in this galaxy. And you have sent one ship to stop me. He laughed again. I admire your courage. It is foolish, but I admire it. Una did not flinch. I am Captain Unipark of the ESS Defiance. What do you want? I want to offer you a choice, Valthus said. Surrender now, and I will make the conquest of your world quick. Your people will become slaves to the Empire. Yes, but they will live. Refuse, and I will burn your planet to ash. Every city, every village, every living thing. Nothing will remain. The bridge was silent. Everyone waited for Una's response. She smiled. Thank you for the offer, she said calmly. But I have a different proposal. Turn your fleet around. Leave our system. Never return. Do this, and we will allow you to live. Valthus stared at her for a moment. Then he burst into laughter so loud that his officers had to cover their ears. You threaten me? One ship threatens 3,000? He shook his head. You humans are more insane than I thought. Very well. You have chosen death. I will destroy you first, and then I will make your people watch recordings of your death for 1,000 years. The screen went dark. Una turned to her crew. Their faces were pale, but they held steady. Well, she said. He seems unpleasant. A small laugh rippled through the bridge. It broke the tension just enough. Dr. Cho, Una called. Is our special project ready? Hannah Cho's voice came through the intercom from engineering. It is ready, Captain. But I must warn you again. The gravity manipulation system has never been tested in combat. It could work perfectly, or it could tear our ship apart. What exactly will it do? Tejo asked. Una walked to the main tactical display. Dr. Cho has been working on this technology for 10 years. It allows us to control gravity in a localized area. We can create gravity wells, areas of intense gravitational pull around our ship. Like small black holes, Hana added. Anything that comes close will be pulled toward them, including weapons fire. including enemy ships. Tejo's eyes widened. We could use their own weapons against them. Exactly, Yuna said. Their numbers are their strength. Thousands of ships firing at us. But if we can bend that fire, redirect it, make them hit each other instead of us. She traced a line on the display. Their strength becomes their weakness. But there's a problem, Hana said. Running the system at full power will burn out our engines within minutes. And if we push it beyond 100%, the gravity wells could collapse and crush us instantly. Yuna nodded. Then we need to be very careful about how we use it. We will not try to destroy the entire fleet. That would be impossible. But we can hurt them. We can hurt them badly. She pulled up the enemy fleet formation on the display. They have arranged themselves in a tight formation. Standard Valorian tactics. They expect to overwhelm us with concentrated fire. But that formation has a weakness. The center, Tejo said, understanding. If we can get to the center of their formation, then every ship that fires at us risks hitting another Valorian ship, Yuna finished. We fly into the heart of the fleet. We activate the gravity system. And we let them destroy themselves. The plan was insane. Everyone on the bridge knew it was insane. Flying directly into 3,000 enemy warships was suicide by any normal standard. But they were not facing a normal situation. What are our chances? G1 asked quietly. Yuna was silent for a moment. Honestly, I do not know. We might take down a few hundred ships before they destroy us. We might fail completely. But we will do something no one expects. We will attack. She looked around the bridge at every face. The Valorians have conquered 200 star systems because every species they faced tried to defend. They built walls. They created lines. And the Valorians broke through every time. She slammed her fist on the console. We are not going to defend. We are going to charge straight at them. We are going to make them fear. Tejo grinned despite the situation. They will think we have lost our minds. Good, Yuna said. Let them think that. By the time they realize their mistake, it will be too late. She moved to her captain's chair and sat down. All hands, prepare for combat. Set course directly for the center of the enemy fleet. Maximum speed. Captain. The pilot, one Shik. Oh, responded. Course set. Ready on your command. Yuna looked at the viewing screen. 3,000 ships waited out there. 3,000 enemies who thought this would be easy. She smiled. All ahead full. Take us in. The Defiance's engines roared to life. The small ship shot forward like an arrow flying toward a storm. On the Valorian flagship, Velthus watched in disbelief. What are they doing? He demanded. Rethka stared at his screens. They are attacking, High Commander. They are flying directly at us. One ship attacking 3,000? Velthus shook his head. They truly are mad. He leaned back on his throne and smiled. No matter. All ships, open fire. Destroy them. The Grand Fleet unleashed its weapons. Thousands of energy beams and missiles flew toward the Defiance. The final battle had begun. One human ship destroys the Galactic Empire's mighty fleet. Part 5. The moment Dr. Hana Cho pushed the gravity system to 150%, the Defiance screamed. Every light on the ship flickered. The hull groaned as forces beyond its design pulled at every plate and beam. In engineering, consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Crew members were thrown to the ground, but outside the ship, something incredible happened. A gravity well of impossible power formed around the Defiance. It was not like the smaller wells from before. This was a monster. A black hunger that reached out across thousands of kilometers and grabbed everything in its path. The Valorian ships had spread out to avoid the earlier trick. It did not matter anymore. The gravity well was too strong, too vast. Ships that were 500 kilometers away suddenly found themselves being pulled toward the human vessel, and the human vessel was at the center of an ever-growing sphere of destruction. High Commander. Velthus grabbed his throne as the flagship lurched sideways. What is happening? Gravity well? Rethka gasped. Massive. Bigger than anything we have ever seen. It is pulling the entire fleet inward. Ships began crashing into each other. The careful spread formation collapsed as vessels were dragged from every direction toward the Defiance. Explosions bloomed across the battlefield like flowers of fire. The flagship was caught in the pull. Its mighty engines roared at maximum power, trying to escape, but it was not enough. Slowly, inevitably, it was being drawn toward the center. On the Defiance, the situation was desperate. The ship was literally tearing itself apart. Hull breaches on 12 decks. Someone shouted. Engine 3 is offline. Gravity system at critical overload. Una held onto her chair as the ship shook violently. She could hear metal screaming, could feel the deck tilting beneath her feet. They had maybe seconds before the ship broke apart completely, but she did not give the order to stop. Through the viewing screen, she watched as Valorian ships crashed together. Hundreds of vessels collided and exploded. The chain reaction spread outward, catching more and more ships. It was beautiful and terrible, a storm of destruction that grew with every passing second. Enemy count at 800, Tejo reported, his voice strained. 500. 300. Then, at the heart of the chaos, the Valorian flagship was pulled into the gravity well's center. It crashed into a cluster of its own destroyers. The explosion was so bright that the viewing screen automatically dimmed to protect the crew's eyes. Velthus had one final moment of clarity as his ship came apart around him. He saw his fleet burning. He saw his empire's pride reduced to wreckage. And he understood, at last, what kind of enemy he had faced. With his last breath, he activated an emergency beacon and sent a message to all Valorian channels. Do not attack humanity. Do not invade their space. Leave them alone. They are not like us. They do not surrender. They do not fear death. They will destroy you. They will destroy everything. Then the flagship exploded, and High Commander Velthus was gone. On the Defiance, the gravity system finally died. The emitters melted. The generators exploded. The gravity well collapsed. The ship drifted silently among the wreckage of the Grand Fleet. Over 2,900 Valorian ships had been destroyed. The few remaining vessels, maybe 70 or 80, were already fleeing into hyperspace. Their crews too terrified to continue fighting thought it was over. Una sat in her chair, unable to move. Her body was exhausted. Her mind could barely process what had happened. They had won. Somehow, impossibly, they had won. Report, she said quietly. Tejo's voice was weak but steady. Enemy fleet destroyed. Approximately 80 ships escaped. They are running. Our status? There was a long pause. The ship is badly damaged, Captain. Engines are offline. Life support is failing. We have maybe 3 hours before we lose atmosphere. Casualties? Chief Medic Jiang answered. 312 dead. Over 200 wounded. 312. Una let that number sink into her heart. 312 of her people had died so that Earth could live. She would remember every single one of them. And Earth? G1 managed a tired smile. Earth is sending rescue ships. They will reach us in 2 hours. They had made it. Just barely, but they had made it. Una leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. Around her, the surviving crew members began to celebrate quietly. Some laughed. Some cried. Some simply sat in silence, trying to understand that they were still alive. The rescue ships arrived 90 minutes later. A fleet of medical vessels and repair ships surrounded the broken Defiance and began evacuating the crew. Yuna was the last to leave, walking slowly through the shattered corridors of her ship one final time. The Defiance was beyond saving. Her hull was cracked. Her systems were destroyed. She would never fly again. But she had done her duty. She had protected her home. "Thank you," Yuna whispered to the ship as she stepped into the rescue shuttle. "Thank you for everything." 1 week later, Yuna stood in a great plaza in Seoul. Behind her was a memorial wall with the names of every crew member who had died in the battle. 312 names carved in stone, so that the world would never forget. Before her stood millions of people. The ceremony was being broadcast to every corner of Earth and every human colony. The entire species had stopped to honor what had happened. Admiral Lee himself pinned a medal on Yuna's uniform. "For extraordinary courage in the face of impossible odds," he said. "For saving humanity from annihilation. Captain Yuna Park, you are a hero of Earth." Yuna looked out at the crowd. She saw G1 in the front row, her arm in a sling, but her smile bright. She saw Taeho, standing at attention with tears in his eyes. She saw Hannah Cho, who was already working on designs for the next generation of ships. She saw Won Shik and Seung Mi and dozens of other survivors. These were the real heroes. Every single person who had served on the Defiance. "I am not a hero," Yuna said into the microphone. "I am just a captain. The heroes are the 312 souls who gave their lives so that we could stand here today. They knew the odds. They knew they would probably die. And they chose to fight anyway. Not because they wanted glory. Not because they thought they would win. But because they were human. And humans do not give up." She turned to look at the memorial wall. "Remember their names. Remember their sacrifice. And remember that when darkness came for our world, ordinary people stood against it and refused to fall." The crowd was silent. Then, slowly, a sound began to rise. Clapping. First a few people, then dozens, then thousands, then millions. The sound grew until it shook the sky itself. A roar of gratitude and pride from a species that had learned what it was capable of. Far away, in the remains of the Valorian Empire, things were changing. The fleet that had fled the battle had brought Velthu's final message home. It spread through every Valorian world, every conquered system. Humanity had done what no species had ever done. They had broken the Grand Fleet. They had killed the High Commander. They had proven that the Empire was not invincible. Within months, rebellions erupted across conquered worlds. Species that had been slaves for centuries saw hope for the first time. The mighty Valorian Empire began to crumble from within, and in every corner of the galaxy, beings of all kinds looked toward a small blue planet near an ordinary star and wondered about the creatures who lived there, the creatures who had faced 3,000 warships with one small vessel, the creatures who had refused to surrender, the creatures called humans.in. A Valorian historical archive. A scholar recorded the official account of the battle. The final line of the document would be remembered for thousands of years. Let all species know, when the humans faced impossible odds, they did not run. They did not hide. They did not surrender. They attacked. And on that day, an empire fell, brought down by one ship and the stubborn courage of a species too foolish to know when they should lose. On Earth, in a small garden behind her family home, Yuna Park planted 312 flowers, one for each crew member who had not come home. She tended them every day for the rest of her life, and whenever anyone asked her about the battle, she would smile sadly and say the same thing. "We were just humans. We did what humans do. we fought for our home. The flowers bloomed every year, a living memorial to the crew of the Defiance. And every year, people came from across the world to see them and remember the day one ship changed the galaxy forever.